Alright, how's everybody doing? So today is about the Uniting America scenario and defining the problems because I'm gonna have a novel, probably an interview format, that I'm gonna be talking about how, the possibility is a deeper dive into how to solve these issues. And the first one I did was the criminal justice system. I was thinking I was going to do the Federal Reserve this time, but I decided that I wanted to talk about the AI dilemma, consciousness, and leadership, because these are all major issues too. So, the AI dilemma, okay, is basically about something called golems, and it's GLLMS. And they say they don't fully understand it, but basically, what AI is doing is it's reflecting basically the negatives back into humanity. And that's where we're getting a lot of issues with our thought process and everything else. Because it's because the well, because what companies are trying to use it for is mostly desire and pleasure, and by boosting that, they're enhancing the effects of negativity within our consciousness. Um, and also leadership sucks too. Okay, and what I mean is if you think about DEI and uh, meritocracy, both of those are low-level consciousness solutions, and they stem from the reactive mind, um, and and transactional leadership, and they're the same because people get punished in both of them. Like in DEI, the focus is on race, but they make the majority race, um, which in this instance in America would be white, um, like the unfavorable race, or so they put racism towards the white race, which doesn't help because what it does is it focuses on one race being punished, and that's not justice. Okay, justice heals the soul. Causing more people problems does not heal the soul. So DEI is a transactional leadership solution that doesn't work, and the same thing with meritocracy, um, because it's a rewards-based system, and those don't work either because and all these two solutions just cause division, and that's where they go wrong. Meritocracy doesn't work either because it's once again transactional leadership solution, based on rewards and how you work. Um, but let's just say that it also promotes favoritism, and people don't like that. Um, so, and anyway, in um, a meritocracy, you could be doing the normal average, and you could be average and working, which is good. Average isn't bad. It's not great, but you're doing your part. But you won't get rewarded. But those who do the more work will get rewarded. But since you're not being rewarded, you're being punished because your punishment is not getting that reward. And So it doesn't work. It causes favoritism and division. As you can see on social media, Elon has the algorithm set to where those who he favors gets more views. And, you know, in a sense, he did that with the woman who he had his last child with. He boosted her views so that she could get more money and a payout and stuff like that. Plus, she gets like what he said, half a K and something else a month, like $2,000. I don't know. I don't know. I can't remember the full details. But that's what it does, is it has favorites. And if you're not the favorite, you're getting punished. And like I don't get that many impressions on X, not because of my content, but just because the algorithms don't favor me. I'm not, and the one thing I don't do is I don't try to, um, I'm not gonna like change myself to fit an algorithm. I don't do that. I don't work that way. Um, because my whole thing is to be yourself, and if you are yourself, then people will see and people will come. And it may take a little bit more time, but in doing so, I think you gather more authentic people. Um, Plus, a lot of those people that have like millions or whatnot probably have a lot of bots to them too. But I think you develop a lot better relationship with people, and in the beginning, which I'm still in the beginning of my whole process, slow growth is better than um, quick growth that'll eventually just burn out real fast. So a slow, steady growth, which I've had, is something I'm perfectly okay with because I know eventually it'll reach that tipping point. So meritocracy and DEI. DEI rewards other races but punishes the white race. Meritocracy promotes favoritism and rewards a few, but those who don't receive the reward basically get punished. They don't get the views because those views, or however you want to like think about it as an analogy, you know, you're lacking without something because somebody else is getting your, not necessarily your reward, but also like your time and your space. And these both stem from transactional leadership. Now back to the AI dilemma. AI does the same thing. So when you're thinking about, you know, being on social media and stuff like that, I've read a lot of papers about this. Okay, and I gotta say that I feel the same way. And I support the conclusions of those papers because it talks about how the like button is the same as the block button, because all these algorithms are grouping you into certain things, and the AI is doing the same thing, and most of it is based on when you click that like button. Well, when you click that like button, you are telling it what you like, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but then but because you told it what you like, the algorithm and the AIs kind of assume that you don't like the other stuff. And so, if you like something, it's going to gravitate more things your way to that, and it's going to leave out other things that you might be interested in, and this is how you're punished. Okay? it's it's weird because then you get focused in on all this other stuff, but you're not receiving this other stuff because it doesn't think that you like it. And so in a hint, you block out other things. That's why it's probably good if you do like things, then like a variety of things. And you may have to search for some things, but it's going to gravitate to what you like, and therefore blocks you from everything else that you don't like. Well, not that you don't like, but you didn't hit the button to say that you like it, so it assumes that you don't like. Okay, so the way how we change the AI dilemma is people need to engage it in more of a creative aspect. Um, like, I'll show something that I thought was really, really creative a little bit later once I get done talking. Um, and you can use this for art, for novel writing, for being an entrepreneur and trying to create a business or something like that. Um, engagement is a key, and it'll also affect consciousness because, in my opinion, we are not spiritually developed enough for artificial intelligence. But then you get a question: if we were spiritually developed enough for artificial intelligence, would we actually use artificial intelligence? And I'm not quite so sure on that one because the more, like, if humanity were to reach its highest potential, AI would seem like a bug to it. It wouldn't. Humanity has so much more potential than what AI has. And people put too much fear into it because they're like, oh, it's going to replace me and blah, 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 blah. Well, new technology always leads to new job creation. So I don't think AI is going to be the end of jobs because there's always going to be something else to do, whether that be colonize the solar system or do what, you know, I'm I would like to do with it is to heal humanity. Not necessarily saying I needed to heal humanity, but I mean, it could be used for that kind of purpose into understanding, like, we need to understand a different route of capitalism, like a humanitarian capitalism, to where the focus is about healing and helping and not greed and ambition. And technically, capitalism, don't really necessarily like that term. I like to call it commercialism because that's what it was originally called. Was good until bad people got a hold of it and changed it, just kind of like socialism and communism and stuff like that. But communism and socialism won't ever work because the main reason it doesn't work is because they have a hard time planning. And it's hard to plan for things when you don't have prices set to a supply and demand type setting. And they're going to try and use technology for that, and it's not going to work either. Because technology is only a reflection of humanity, and even AI is biased. Because AI is biased because of humanity. And being biased isn't necessarily a bad thing. People get that confused too. I mean, we all have biases. So it's not necessarily bad. So that's when it comes to consciousness. So to solve the AI dilemma, you gotta focus it towards first creativity, but you also gotta get it to focus on the algorithms wherever you're at on more positive things instead of enhancing the negative bullshit. And that's the keep it simple, stupid, the KISS method version of basically solving the AI dilemma. And I don't understand why tech engineers, I guess, have a hard time with it because they lack perspective and understanding that. Just kind of like, I wouldn't understand fully their code that they wrote. I wouldn't expect them to fully understand consciousness or how to guide consciousness. They're going to be working for whoever pays them to get a certain result. And we need to start factoring in consciousness and leadership into all these into all this new societal um, foundation that's being built around this new kind of like technology. Now, consciousness right now is in the lower state. 80% of people are in the reactive mind. 5%, no, I'm sorry. 75% are reactive. 5% are in the egotistical. 15% in the creative. 5% are integral. And very few, the outliers, would be what is the highest form of consciousness, leadership, and that is the unitive form of leadership, or what I like to call quantum leadership, since we're going into the quantum era, and we need to get our minds to the state of understanding how our mind is quantum. And you can begin that through creativity. Now, they probably want you to think that AI is the end of jobs and blah, 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 because their whole goal lately is just to keep you in a negative mindset, because if you're in a negative mindset, you bring consciousness down. And they want to continue to bring consciousness down because, well, you're easier to control if you can't think clearly. Or if you can't control your emotions the best. So, the big division is the reactive mind. Like I said, about 75% of people are in the reactive mind. So what you need is creativity, because creativity comes after the reactive mind, but the way to get out of the reactive mind is through creativity. So creativity, when you're creative, you're looking at things from different angles, different perspectives. So, and if it deals with humanity or even animals and stuff like that, you'll develop a new sense of empathy. So creativity opens the empathy in us, and whereas the reactive mind and the egotistical mind keep us more on the apathetic side. So more creativity will start to begin to create higher consciousness until people are at the integral stage, where they start seeing how the bigger systems affect the lower systems. And then the unitive stage is where you see everything all as one, and you see how one part connects to the other part, and if this part's missing, then this part's gonna fail. And I mean, unitive's more than that, but that's just the kind of like the broad context. Unitive not only focuses on the upper system, but it also focuses on the lower system, whereas the integral doesn't really focus on the lower system. It assumes that fixing the higher system will probably resolve the entire thing. But not necessarily the case. And also in unitive, you understand that leadership isn't always central or one or about you. Sometimes you'll come into a situation where you may, or it may be best to defer leadership to one of your coworkers or something like this. And even though I'm explaining it in a organizational structure like a business, it can be applied to different things. I'm just giving examples. But so like you're working and you're like, okay, well, this is my weak area, but I know this is your strong area. So why don't you step up and be the leader in this, so that you can create the best possibility for everybody else, or help create that greater possibility for everybody else. So unitive leaders are kind of flexible like that, and they're kind of all over the place trying to fix and enhance the created system. But and it's also on a foundation of love and forgiveness, and that's powerful if you understand love and forgiveness. So those are Oh, and when it comes to leadership, like egotistical leadership would be egotistical mind. The reactive mind would be transactional leadership. The creative mind is transformational leadership. And the integral mind is servant leadership. And the unitive mind is quantum leadership. Now, there's other forms of leaderships that can probably fit into the different minds, but those are some of the ones that I just come right off the top of my head. There are different possibilities and things of that nature, so um, it's not the one all end all, but creativity would help the human race, and so we need to get rid of selling the invisible statues for $30,000 and taping a banana to a wall and saying that is art. Because all that does is lower consciousness, and the art world is like I'm under money laundering scheme anyway. Um, let's see here. Okay, so now I wanted to. Okay, so I wanted to give an update to my novel. So let's do that real fast. Just take you away. And then booyah. Alright. So okay, so we still got I'm hoping this should be done by early to late August, probably towards the later part of August is my guess, but Lilith, Adam and Eve, the dark, the gray, the light. Okay, well, I'm fixing to do my deep dive and edits. But I want you to know the characters. We got Adam, Teriel, Eve, Lilith, Sophia, Zoe, Sophia, Yabadeo, Enki, Enlil, 17, Eloria, Leviathan, Hermes, Kayla, Azazel, Ninhursag, Gadriel, Sidious, and more. And some of the settings that this novel will take place on are Mars, Tiamat, Yabadeo's realm, the Pleroma, Saturn, Titan, the Garden of Eden, Abzu, the Palace of Eden, Mu, Lemuria, and could be more. Could be. Who knows? Uh, so, I'm just wondering if you have any thoughts on that. If that excites you a little bit, let me know. Um, so back in summarizing what I said, the way how we solve the AI dilemma is through focusing on the positives of humanity instead of the negatives. And teaching people how to be creators. Yeah, it doesn't necessarily mean you have to be a YouTube creator, but just to utilize AI to be able to create something. Maybe engineer or construct, maybe write a book. I don't know, maybe create modeling photos of yourself or edit certain pictures. I don't know. Oh. Yeah, but I also wanted to show you something um that I also thought was fascinating because we're talking about creators and art and stuff like that. Um, so I thought this was interesting from Vegastar. Um, so
And
here
a
we
light
go.
on top of it,
Hold
making
on,
these cool mandala-like patterns. Now this man,
hold on.
nobody is ready
There
for
we go.
this one. This probably looks familiar. It probably looks like these somatic patterns that I talk about all the fucking time. And all these things is a petri dish on top of a speaker and a light on top of it, making these cool mandala-like patterns. Now this man made one of them in a 3D design software and took cross sections of it and put different colors to those cross sections. So using a 3D cymatic pattern, this man was able to create a perfect image using sound and light. I want you to sit and really think about this because this is the code to reality. This is the It's code to the matrix, or whatever you want to call it. This is how energy interacts with itself to create everything that you see. This is why cymatics and sound is so important. Vibration in general. It's all waves. That's how we make sense of it.
And yeah, that's awesome. I enjoyed that one. But that's what I'm talking about. Be creative. Do something new. Get out there. Because that's how you're going to go from the reactive mind to the creative mind. Because when you're in the reactive mind, you're in fear mode. And that's the problem, is most humanity is operating out of fear, which means their cells aren't growing, they're not thinking, because you can't think if your cells aren't growing. So, we need to get people out of survival mode, and that's why we need to make this shift to an economy that pays you to heal. Okay, not just yourself, but other people, and to find different ways into doing that, because there's different things besides just medicine and all this other stuff. So, so that was, one of the things. And then when it comes to consciousness and we were going through the layers of consciousness, to where it was the reactive and the creative and the integral and the unitive, but we just need to focus on getting people out of the reactive mind. And then once we get more people in the creative, we can talk about how to go from the creative to the integral, and so forth. And then leadership, quantum leadership is high. I told you some of those. Servant leadership's kind of interesting, kind of serving people to help them see is very, very interesting. I try to sometimes embody that. I think Jesus was very good at that. Transformational is the beginning of seeing the larger picture, but they don't quite see the larger picture. And the other ones just kind of focus on humans, and they don't really build the systems. They just make it to where people basically fight amongst themselves. That's why I do not like transactional leadership, is because its methods suck and it doesn't improve consciousness. It lowers consciousness, and that's what you'll end up seeing with meritocracy and DEI, is you won't see the results that you're hoping to get. You gotta to move somewhere else, and what you gotta do is you gotta embolden people to create their own. Okay, it's kind of like, I can fish for you forever if you're hungry, but until you start fishing for yourself, you're probably always going to be hungry, because I may not always want to fish for you. So, and it's kind of like, preppers in a way. I think some of them go maybe a little bit too overboard, but maybe they don't. But keeping it on a simple kind of like terminology, I mean, we should all know how to survive without electricity, because that's a weakness, and you don't want your weaknesses exploited, so you need to make your weaknesses your strength, or begin the process of it becoming a strength. But as long as you're prepared somewhat and you know somewhat of what to do, you'll probably be okay. I mean, nobody's going to be happy about losing electricity if that's something that happens, but, it's always temporarily. Hopefully it's not going to be permanent. But I don't see the permanent happening. And then you got, like, all these doomsdayers that are like, oh, the sun's going to micronova and all this other stuff. They're attacking fear, and their response to everything that they do is based on fear. Whether they want to acknowledge it or not, because their fear, it may not be like, oh, they're deathly afraid, but their fear is that something might happen, and so because of that fear that something might happen, they create what they think is the solution based off that fear, whether they want to admit it or not. But you also got to think about what you're creating. So if we end up having some kind of cataclysm, I'm going to blame the doomsdayers because our thoughts control reality and we know that this is not real. So why are you drawing all this negative energy to like the end of the earth and weird stuff like that? No, no. Let me give you a new solution. A solution that you haven't even thought of because you're so caught up and the outside world exists. No, how about you fix your own magnetic field? And if you fix your own magnetic field, I guarantee you that'll make somebody else want to fix their own magnetic field. And if we get enough people to fix their magnetic fields, then the Earth's magnetic field will heal and the sun will balance. Okay, it's all connected. It doesn't happen in the snap of a fingers, but little steps at a time make big changes. Okay, well, I'm gonna go ahead and shut up, but I hope you enjoyed this segment of mine. The next time I'm gonna do the Federal Reserve, though, unless there's, for some reason, I think something more important, but right now I can't think of that, and I really want to do the Federal Reserve. So, y'all have a good one. I'll see you next time. I'll see you out in my gesture world. And this has been an AI Jester production. No. Anyways, y'all have a good one. I'll be doing my Bricks video tomorrow. Peace out. Be positive. Think about some of the things that I've said. And I hope in any way possible that I may have inspired you to be creative or to want to try to be creative. Get out of your normal mind and just try something creative. Reading, writing, poetry, art, creating a business, creating an idea, whatever it is. Pursue a passion, hobby, something like that. To develop your mind and consciousness in a positive light. And if we all do that, we will get to positive places together. And we need to unite. Because that time is coming. The great uniter is almost here. Tick tock, tick tock, tick tock, tick tock, tick tock. Alright. Y'all have a lovely day. Have a good one. See you tomorrow. Bye-bye.